Welcome back to HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we dive into some of the biggest stories in the world of law, entertainment and beyond. Today we're talking about a case that has gripped the public and media alike, and that is R. Kelly's legal battle in New York and his ongoing appeal whose verdict has delayed. After the rather prejudicial 2021 trial that saw him convicted at one of the most controversial trials of all time, Kelly's legal team has been working tirelessly to challenge the charges and set the record straight. But could R. Kelly actually be destined to win his New York appeal? What are the factors that could lead to a potential overturn of his conviction? Stick with us as we break down the legal grounds of the appeal, the arguments from both sides and what might lie ahead in this high-profile case. Let's start by setting the stage. In September 2021, R. Kelly was convicted in New York on rather strange charges of racketeering and violations of the Mann Act, which covers the transportation of individuals across state lines for unlawful purposes. These charges, according to prosecutors, stemmed from allegations of sexual exploitation, with prosecutors arguing that Kelly led a so-called criminal enterprise to recruit and abuse women and underage girls. Interestingly though, it has since not been proved that R. Kelly actually did operate a criminal enterprise, or that he did use his music management team for this purpose. In other words, no illegal enterprise has been proved by the prosecution. And sadly to speak, it is from these allegations that lacked proof that R. Kelly was slapped with a 30-year sentence, which in relation to his current age is an indirect life sentence. This conviction was primarily based on the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO Act, which lacks reason for even appearing on his indictment in the first place. Originally created to combat organized crime such as that by illegal drug cartels among other criminal gangs, RICO is a federal statute often associated with targeting criminal enterprises like the mafia or gang syndicates. In R. Kelly's case, however, prosecutors argued that he used his music management team, Inner Circle, and resources to systematically exploit vulnerable individuals for his own purposes. But this application of the RICO statute is now one of the main grounds for Kelly's appeal, with his defense team arguing that the law was misapplied in his case. According to R. Kelly's lead attorney Jennifer Bonjean, every information concerning his relationships with the accusing women indicate that R. Kelly acted alone, and therefore it's not right to assume a RICO enterprise where it didn't exist. So why does R. Kelly's defense team believe they have a strong chance of overturning his New York conviction? The appeal centers on three major arguments. First, there's the question of whether RICO was an appropriate statute to apply in this case. The RICO Act was originally designed to dismantle organized crime networks with distinct structures and operational patterns. R. Kelly's attorneys argue that his situation doesn't meet the legal requirements of a criminal enterprise as envisioned by the statute. According to them, he was not running an organized hierarchical criminal enterprise, which according to Bonjean should in fact be rooted in crime. And that the individuals involved were not engaged in systematic criminal activity, but rather personal interactions taken out of context and exaggerated in court. According to Kelly's defense, therefore, applying RICO in this case was a legal stretch and an overreach by prosecutors to secure a conviction that would fetch more jail time for the R&B king. If the appellate judges agree with this interpretation by R. Kelly's legal team, therefore, which is the expected, it could have major implications for the entire case against R. Kelly, as we will likely see his conviction overturned on the basis of improper application of the law. The second key argument concerns alleged procedural errors and potential bias during the trial. Kelly's team argues that he did not receive a fair trial, pointing to several factors that in fact worked against him. For example, attorney Bonjean says that the excessive pre-trial publicity and the intense media coverage surrounding Kelly's case created an atmosphere of bias, making it difficult for him to get an impartial jury. She also points to the fact that some of the testimonies used against him were highly questionable, arguing that the court allowed witnesses whose stories did not hold up under scrutiny, and by this she makes a good and valid point. His defense team also argues that several key pieces of evidence were either mishandled or improperly admitted. They emphasize that some of the evidence used to paint Kelly as guilty was speculative and should not have been allowed in court. This includes alleged private conversations that cannot be backed up with evidence and hearsay testimony from witnesses whose credibility is even questionable. According to the defense, these pieces of evidence were given too much weight, and these also biased the jury against him. Those who prefer to believe that R. Kelly is guilty only view the conviction as an important step in holding powerful figures accountable, and a statement that fame and influence can't shield someone from facing justice, but this is all besides the point. If we focus on taking down celebrities as the core objective to make them exemplary, we are likely to miss out on what the law says, and by this, we are derailing from the rule of law and turning to sentiment and wrongfully convicting famous defendants just for being famous. The good news is that R. Kelly still has a vocal group of case analysts and supporters who can see that he's been unfairly targeted. These argue that his fame made him a prime candidate for prosecution, which is not the way suspects are supposed to be picked out. It's not R. Kelly's fault that he is famous and a successful songwriter, and so it shouldn't be the criteria for his prosecution. There is no doubt the government went after him harder than it would have if he was an ordinary citizen, and in the process, the principles of justice were lost. Many case observers even until today question the validity of the word-of-mouth testimonies and the rather weak evidence presented in court, believing that the media narrative influenced the outcome unfairly. It's therefore correct to argue that if Kelly's conviction is overturned, it would be a win for fair trials and due process, even in the face of excessive media coverage and the blindfold of the defendant being a renowned celebrity. So let's ask the big question here. What happens if R. Kelly's appeal succeeds? If the court finds that the RICO statute was misapplied, which is the most likely outcome, or that he didn't receive a fair trial, it could lead to his conviction being overturned or even a new trial ordered. The appellate court has the power to rule on several potential outcomes, though, ranging from ordering a retrial to dismissing the charges entirely. Also important to note, if his conviction is overturned based on the use of RICO, it could set a precedent, especially when it comes to applying this law in cases involving individuals rather than structured crime rings, which is a total violation of the initial intent by its enactors. While we wait for the already delayed outcome of the New York appeal, it's important to make everyone understand some of these important legal issues. There is need to continue educating the system on what is exactly expected of them, and reminding them that they owe it to every American citizen to serve justice to all categories of people, celebrity or ordinary, with the same yardstick. The business of selecting and singling out individuals for their social status will not be acceptable and must end. The judges ought to be fair and convict R. Kelly only for the crimes he may have committed, if any, and refrain from concocting charges and forcing them on him to arrive at a long jail term, which is against the laws of this land. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.